Hello students, welcome to this is Dr. Vignesh Farmekha, lecturer in Geography, Government Degree College for Women's, Begumpet, Hyderabad. In this session, we are going to discuss about weathering, definition and types, part 2. In the previous session, we have discussed about the part 1. In that, we have discussed about the definition of the weathering, stages of weathering, factors controlling the weathering, and the types of weathering. And today, that is in this session, we are going to cover the following points. Landforms created by the weathering process. In this, we are going to discuss disintegration of landforms, solution landforms. In disintegration landforms, we are going to discuss about engelbergs, tows, bonehards, exfoliation domes, weathering pits and cavities, rubble fields and slopes, fins, alcoves, arches, and hoodoos, regolith, overburden and soils. Then we will discuss about the solution or limestone landforms by weathering, that is karst topography landforms. We also discuss about the periglacial landforms and miscellaneous if any. And let us start the landforms created by the weathering. The removal of the weathered by products by erosion is an integral part of any landform development. And there are an infinite variety of landforms created by differential weathering and erosion. A few landforms where the form is dominated by the style of weathering are presented here. Others are covered later under the other sections. First, we will discuss with the disintegration landforms. Engelbergs. The figure on the screen discloses you about the engelbergs. Engelberg are isolate rock hills created by long-term weathering and erosion process. These hills are steep-sided and typically lack talus at the base, suggesting that they were created by deep weathering and exhumation rather than dissection and slow retreat. Joints play an important role in their formation, that is the formation of the engelbergs. Bonehards and tows are varieties of engelbergs. We are going to discuss the tows and even bonehards also in the next paragraphs. Tows. The figure on the screen that you see is the tows. Tows are residual rock masses that display as isolated piles of boulders. Although they typically form in granite, they also developed in other lithologies. Linton theorized a two-stage process of formation. The first involves deep penetration of weathering along jointed bedrock, which produces a thick saprolite mantle interspersed with the unweathered coast stones. The second stage is brought on by exhumation, either by tectonic upliftment or lowering of base layer. The granular saprolite is quickly removed, wind and water removing, leaving behind the rounded coast stones. Next is Bonehart. It is named after W. Bonehart Circa, the German geomorphologist who first coined the term engelberg. Bonehards are distinct steep-sided and dome-shaped hills. Unlike tows, they are composed of relatively unjointed rock except for large curved surface joints. These large rounded monoliths are propped to form by exfoliation following by the removal of neighboring the weaker rocks. Probably the two most famous bone huts are Half Dome in Esmage Valley and Ayers Rock in Australia. Bone huts are, for all intents and purposes, large isolated exfoliation domes. Not all bone huts are necessarily landscape. As with the toes, exhumation is most likely is imposition in their development. The figure on the screen discloses you about the bone huts. The figure on the screen discloses you about the exfoliation domes. These are formed after the removal of the surface layers of the rock after the regular or alternative contraction and expansion of the rocks. It means when the rock top layers are removed as the peels of the onions, like the peels of the onions, then these exfoliation domes are formed. The next is weathering pits and cavities. The weathering pits are depressions created where the water ponds and irregularities on rock surfaces. The trapped water localizes chemical weathering and granular disintegration. Wind and water together removes the loosened grains and the depressions and a large dropping more water in positive feedback cycle. The figure on the screen discloses you about the weathering pits, which are in alkali granite, Peabody. So this glacial pavement is port-marked with the weathering pits formed where the water collected in what were originally glacial gorge. Next is Chophoni, means the small caverns. Chophoni is a unique type of pitted surface formed by the alveolar or a honeycomb weathering. A style of weathering resulted from salt weathering and differential solution and precipitation of solutes in sandstones having a soluble cement. The weathering creates pocket-like caverns on rock surfaces, usually sandstones with a calcareous cement. Now, the rubble fields and slopes. In general, the rubble fields and slopes of blocky rubble is common in alpine and periglacial setting where the freeze thaw dominates. Examples of such rubble fields and slopes includes Felsenmeer, Scree, Talus, and Talus spots. Felsenmeer, choitic block fields typically developed above the tree line are known as the Felsenmeer. Scree, in general, term for choitic blocky rubble, the term scree is used. A scree slope formed at the base of a cliff is called as the cliff. Talus. Talus cones. They are conical scree slopes that formed along the base of a cliff. The picture The figure on the screen discloses about the talus and talus cones. And other forms are the fins, alcoves, arches, and hoods. So these are the unique features formed by varying styles of disintegration and horizontal erosion, which is bedded and vertically jointed rock. There are common features of the Colorado Plateau province in American continent. Fins. Fins are the residual walls of rock which remain after adjacent rock has been removed along systematic parallel joint sets. Such joint sets are typically formed by tensional stresses along anticlinal or monoclinal fold axis. The joints leading to the creation of the Courthouse Towers, as shown in the figure. In Arch National Park formed a thick sandstone, that is slick rock member of the Kayenta Formation, and are attributed to the deformation and subsequent collapse of salt core anticlines. Alcoves and arches. These are weathering features common in the dissected horizontal strata of the Plateau of Colorado. They form where chemical and physical weathering is concentrated along horizontal discontinuities where water and salts concentrate, such as the contact between a sandstone and underlying shale bedrocks. Once they formed and flow enlarges, often through exfoliation. Indians in the American Southwest built cliff dwellings in natural alcoves, enlarging them by digging out any soft weathered rock and using joint blocks to enclose them. Arches form where alcoves break through residual fins of rocks created by erosion along the joint sets. The figures on the screen discloses to you about the alcoves and arches. Pools. These are rock pinnacles which are formed by the differential weathering and erosion of vertically jointed horizontal beds of shale interbedded within thin resistant beds of limestone, sandstone, or conglomerate rocks. The fine examples and the type locality of pools occur in Bryce Canyon in Utah. Regolith, overburden soil. General definition of the regolith overburden soil is nothing but the disintegrated and decomposed mineral and organic matter which occurring naturally on the Earth's surface. The terms regolith and overburden are general terms applied to any sediment overlying bedrock. They may be transported or formed in situ by weathering. Transported regolith includes glacial, fluvial, colluvial, lacustrine, marine, or aeolian deposits. with the exception of rare saprolite localities. The regolith in New England and the upper Midwest is transported mostly by glaciers and their meltwater byproducts. In situ soils are found south of the glacial limitations. Transported regolith also occurs in alluvial valleys and deserts even. Now, we look into the solution landforms by weathering, that is, the coast landforms, the limestone landforms by the weathering. Among the most interesting, most beautiful landforms of weathering are those which grown in regions of the limestone bedrocks. These landscapes are very commonly known as the coast landforms. In coast topography, weathering is concentrated along the joints and bending planes of the limestone, producing a number of different sculptured features from the effects of the solution processes. Depressions of all sizes and shapes hit the landscape surface and are the most obvious features which are associated with the coast topography. Beneath the surface, solution results in the formation of caves, springs, underground water, channels, and deposits from the evaporation process. Besides the disintegration landforms by weathering, solution landforms by the weathering, we also discuss about the periglacial landforms by the weathering process. The unique landforms made by the weathering are also found in polar regions and subpolar regions. In these regions, the process of physical weathering is very dominant, with active freeze thaw and frost shattering being the most active. The associated with these weathering processes are a number of unique surface features that have been developed only in periglacial environments. They are collectively known as the pattern ground. The surface features resembles like circles, polygons, nets, steps, and strums. The outlines of all of the features consist of elevated accumulations of coarse regolith fragmental materials. Scientists mostly believe in that these outlines result from the systematic sorting of particles of a wide range of texture sizes by freeze thaw action. The sorting causes larger fragments to move vertically upward and horizontally outward. The horizontal movement stops when one feature encounters another, connecting the perimeter of two or more features. The connecting of many adjacent features creates the net-like patterns in that areas. Sediments and soils are also the important forms that appears in the weathering process regions. Weathering together with the erosion fine-tunes the landscapes. Tectonics and internal adjustments rough it out, but weathering and erosion etch it, cover it, and create many of the fine details. We use the term disintegration landforms for features created by the mechanical and chemical weathering acting on rocks that are largely insoluble. These landforms reflect styles of disintegration and differential weathering. In contrast, solution landforms are formed in soluble rock. These features are covered in the karst outline, which we will discuss in the karst topography landforms. Dear students, so far we have discussed about the landforms created by weathering. In that we disintegration landforms, solution landforms. Also, we have discussed about the periglacial landforms. In the next session, I will be in front of you with another new topic. Till then, stay home and stay safe. Thank you, one and all, and thank you very much.